Vaccine pusher Dr. Richard Pan is running for Congress against Kevin Kiley, illegal immigrants who are getting CDLs and killing people because they can't figure out how to drive. We also have the DOJ come in to check in on Prop 50 elections to make sure they're fair. Gavin Newsom's all up in an uproar about that. And our old friend Kamala Harris teasing she might not be done with public policy or public politics. We're going to get to that and more. Today's episode of the California Underground starting right now. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the California Underground. I am your host, the most trusted podcast for all things California politics. We have a ton of stuff to get to tonight, and a couple more announcements that I want to make sure we get to is that Telegram will be going live, so check out and make sure you stay tuned for all the notifications about that, whether it be posted here or on Instagram or somewhere. We're going to let you know when Telegram's going live, probably within the next week, maybe November 1st. We're just going to throw that out there. So if you're interested in joining the members-only Telegram as well, less than a week to go vote for Prop 50. Also, we have a Substack. Make sure you check out our Substack if you like reading articles. But before we get started with this video, make sure you subscribe, like, share, review, follow, hit the notification bell to keep updated with everything. And as always, I'm joined by my trusty co-host, the best, the fastest researcher in the West, Camille. How are you doing tonight, Camille?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been busy, but let's hop right in because we've got a ton of stuff to get to. We actually just inserted this story right before we hopped on. Our old friend, Kamala Harris, the queen of cringe, is not done. According to her, not done with the public life. This is also in conjunction with this tweet that also came out, which is that Gavin Newsom is no longer denying a possible run for president, telling CBS he'll consider it after the midterm election. So after next year, he's going to consider whether he wants to run for president or not. Might be having to do with campaign finance laws or something like that. But this is the first time that he's actually hinted that he's going to run for president. We all know he's going to run for president in 2028. It's no secret. And meanwhile, Kamala Harris said she's not done in a CBS Sunday morning interview. Let's take a look at that clip right now.
Also still keeping the door open to running for president again, saying she believes the U.S. will elect a woman leader in her young grandnieces' lifetimes.
Could it be you? Possibly. I am not done. I have lived my entire career a life of service, and it's in my bones.
All right. So Kamala Harris not ruling out the fact that she might run in 2028 for president again. Please do so, because there's so much good content when Kamala Harris ran for president. Gavin Newsom now finally admitting that he's thinking maybe he'll announce after 2026. So now we've got two potential contenders putting it out there, starting to get the feelers out. It's not the midterms yet, but I'm sure we'll get more information and news after the midterms. Let me ask you, Camille, are you excited for A, Kamala Harris run again, or B, Gavin Newsom running, which we all knew was coming anyway?
Truly, I would be more interested in a Kamala Harris run because I do believe that she could easily lose again. Gavin Newsom scares me. I think he has a actually valid shot at winning the presidential race. And we all know he's been campaigning for it. California has not done well under his leadership. There are people that will deny it because they always like to throw in that California is the fifth largest economy. Therefore, Gavin Newsom's doing wonderful things. But despite us being the fifth largest economy, we have so many issues and we are absolutely dead broke. Not just broke, we're in billions of dollars of debt here in California. And I can't imagine what he would do to the entire nation of America, of the United States, if he were to become our president. But propaganda works. News has really censored what is truly going on in California, and he's a popular choice. Women love him and his hair gel. I don't, but lots of women do. Looks over policy. So he has a valid shot at winning. Kamala Harris, women will definitely stand behind her as they did last time. I mean, it was just like, well, a woman's running, therefore, we obviously need to get behind her. That did not work out so well. that was entertaining. And I do wonder, sorry, this is not what you asked me, and I'm just going to go off of her a second, but I do wonder if there's a private feud between Harris and Newsom, because they're both hinting at running. And so it seems like they haven't had the closed door meetings that we always speak of, or maybe they have, and they've just decided, may the best man or woman win. I do wonder, would they decide to put their differences aside and be on the same ticket? If Katie Porter loses in the primaries come next year for her governor race for California, would she then throw in her ticket to be the presidential nominee? I mean, she lost for U.S. Senate, but that didn't stop her from running for California governor and taking a break. So I do wonder if, because of recent events with her, would she be like, well, I'm not winning the governor's race, may as well get on a presidential ticket? And who knows, would her and Harris team up to be like some girl power team? What do you think?
Oh, gosh. Kamala Harris, Katie Porter ticket might be the most, it'd be entertaining, but also probably the most annoying ticket you could imagine. I mean, talk about two women who are absolutely condescending and elitists who think that they're better than everybody. I don't know why Kamala Harris thinks she would do better this time. She didn't. Even when she ran in 2020 in the primary, she was one of the first people out, if not the first person. I don't even think she won one delegate vote. So the fact that she thinks now it's all of a sudden going to make a big difference, like she got clobbered by Trump. She didn't even get past the primaries. She did horribly in 2020. Now all of a sudden she's thinking about running again in 2028, which is, 3 years from now. A whole lot of things change. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you can make a ton of money and exposure, and, it's not the worst thing in the world to be a popular presidential candidate and have all that influence and everything. Katie Porter, she'd be failing upwards to keep losing races and then keep going for bigger offices. And a all California woman ticket would probably guarantee JD Vance wins by like a landslide of over 300 electoral votes. Gavin Newsom, you're right, is the scary one. We all know he's going to announce sooner or later. We all know this is why he's combating Trump and why he's always against Trump, and whatever Trump does. I mean, that's why Prop 50 is a thing, is because he's doing it to compete against Trump. It has nothing to do with protecting democracy or giving power to the people. It's nothing like that. It's about elevating his personal brand. So, but we're getting close. It's just a sign that politics happens pretty quickly. You think like, Trump was elected last year and people were feeling, okay, you can rest on your, nope, this stuff happens and it moves rather quickly. The midterms are right around the corner. There's going to be a lot of people. There's a governor's race coming up here in California. Next story we're going to get into is all about the congressional races that are happening. But these things happen fast, and before you know it, you blink your eye and it's 2027 and you get people who are already announcing that they're running for president. So starting to get the trickle of who is running for president. I can't believe that's already, it feels like we just got past a huge presidential election. And here we are already talking about 2028 because people just can't relax with that. All right. First story I want to get into, Dr. Richard Pan. If you don't know who Dr. Richard Pan is, if you haven't been following politics for the past 10 years or so, especially during COVID, Dr. Richard Pan was an assembly member or a senator. I can't remember. Was he senator? I think he was a senator.
I don't recall if he was assembly prior to senator, but he did term out as a senator.
Right. So he termed out, and he was part of a group that pushed these vaccine bills. So now, if you remember way back in 2020 or 2021, I think it was 2021, because it was ludicrous that he was still pushing this. He was part of a group, including people like Scott Wiener, who were pushing these vaccine mandate bills. He was pushing all the protocols. He wanted to shove them down our throat. I think he was doing it because even though they were unpopular, he was termed out. So why not just throw them at us? He's running. He's announced that he's running for District 3. If you don't know where District 3 is, here's a screenshot of District 3. This is Kevin Kiley's district. So we all know Kevin Kiley. He's been on the show. He's one of the most popular Republican politicians here in California. This is what California District 3 looks like now, and this is what Kevin Kiley represents. They have gerrymandered and gotten rid of all of this part for District 3. And if you notice, you can see this little trunk. It looks like a little elephant. They've now had this little elephant trunk that now reaches and grabs a whole bunch of Democratic voters from Sacramento. And again, this, according to Gavin Newsom and California Democrats, this is not gerrymandering. This returns power to the people. So that's why Dr. Richard Pan is now running, is because it's not a solid red district. It's a, I guess, competitive, maybe swing or probably lean blue at this point with all those Sacramento voters in there. So that's the scenario right now. It's a shame that Kevin Kiley has to go through this. He's been one of the best fighters out there for California, even when he was back in Assembly. We're going to watch a little bit of an interview, and I apologize to people watching because this is an older interview. This was around the time 2020, it's back during COVID. It may bring up some old memories and some old feelings. I know it did for me. I got mad watching this again because I was like, and I know especially for Camille, she's had a long-standing feud with Richard Pan going way back, even before COVID. So I apologize to everyone. This is footage from COVID. So just hang in there with us. We're going to watch it. If you have any comments, ask me to pause, and we'll watch some of this.
A controversial bill introduced in California. A proposed state law would add COVID vaccines to the list of vaccinations K through 12th grade students must get to enroll in public or private schools starting next January. The bill would also eliminate personal belief exemptions for students for COVID vaccines and other future vaccines.
That's Dr. Richard Pan there in the mask, whatever mask that is, and 95 or whatever. I don't know.
Sacramento State Senator Richard Pan, who is also a pediatrician, unveiled the bill today during a news conference with teachers in Los Angeles.
And Dr. Richard Pan is with us now live. Dr. Pan, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So we should point out, by the way, that medical exemptions would remain. The personal belief exemption would go away. Why is this so necessary when so many parents say, I want my kids to be able to choose? I want to be able to have the choice when it comes to my kid. What's your case for doing this?
Well, thank you for having me here. And parents can choose. They can decide what they wish to do. They can choose not to vaccinate their child. But that decision has consequences. And the consequence isn't to punish the parent who chose not to vaccinate their child. The consequence is to keep the other children in school safe. So we have other children in school who may be immunocompromised. They may have conditions which put them at high risk for COVID. They may also live in a household where there's people at risk for COVID. Maybe one of their relatives has diabetes or some other significant illness, or someone has a transplant. So those families, they deserve the right to know that when they send their child to school, their child will be safe, and that when they come home, they're not going to bring a disease that may actually harm or even kill someone in their family.
But doctor, we know now with the Omicron variant that the vaccines are not stopping people who have been vaccinated from either getting COVID or spreading COVID. So how is that true?
Well, actually, the vaccine does reduce the chance of transmission when you're fully vaccinated. And certainly vaccines alone are not going to completely stop.
I'm going to stop right there because there's a couple things he said. Well, he talks about the personal belief exemption, which we'll get into. At this point, we were at Omicron. So Omicron was the last variant of COVID that we were going through, and it was the weakest. It was the most, I guess you would say it's the most spreadable because it was so weak. And at that point, most people's natural immunity was already pushing off or fighting off Omicron. And the vaccines at this point, as Alex Michelson pointed out, were almost 2 variants behind. So they were sending out vaccines and telling people, you have to go get these vaccines, but they were for different variants of COVID. They weren't for the Omicron version of this or the variant of it. So the fact that he's still sitting up there and saying, no, you still got to get the vaccine, even though it's not made for Omicron, and it does reduce transmission, which after studies, we did find out that it didn't actually reduce transmission. Remember the lie that Biden said during 2020 is that you have to get the vaccine because it stops transmission dead in its tracks. But this was 2021. This is really the tail end of COVID. Dr. Richard Pan was still pushing vaccine mandates on children, little kids who were not at risk of COVID. They had an incredibly low fatality rate of this, of COVID. And he was still pushing it. And it's almost like we were coming out of it. And for some reason, he was obsessed with pushing vaccines. And I like that he's like, well, we're not getting rid of the personal belief exemption. You can choose not to have your kid vaccinated. They just can't be a member of society, which was sort of the same rationale that a lot of Democrats and statists were saying throughout COVID was you can choose not to get a vaccine. You just won't be a part of society. Enjoy that. Stay at home and be, a hermit. Did you have any comments about any of what we've seen up so far?
Yeah, I was actually, when I was looking at my photos, because I was trying to check the date of this video, and then you said it was from the end of 2021. So that's what I was doing when I was looking away. So yes, that's actually why I was checking the date, is because exactly we had already been through a few variants and people were either pretty much partially or fully vaccinated or had gotten COVID and were now they had the natural immunities to it. And so, as you said, we've seen that children weren't the carriers, or not. In most cases, children were not the carriers. The push for like, okay, well, you can choose to not vaccinate your child or we're not punishing you. You just can't send your child to school. Okay, fine. Fair enough, I guess. But at the same time, if you have a disease, a sickness, you have an illness, something that you're immune compromised, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself. It's not for society to take care of you. And I don't say that in an insensitive manner. I have a daughter with asthma. She has bad asthma. In 2019, she had a really, really bad case. It was like the flu season of 2019, the end of 2019. She may have actually had COVID. We just didn't know what COVID was. All her symptoms kind of line up with it. So she'll get a bad case of asthma, and it like if she gets the flu or the cold will turn into a flu. It'll turn into pneumonia, and then she'll get a collapsed lung. Often this is kind of the thing. And like, we've been through this so many times. So we go to all her doctor appointments, and she has to get put on certain medications, and we deal with, so 2019 particularly, I believe it was, hospitals were actually full. She was supposed to be hospitalized, and they were weirdly enough full. Again, this is prior to COVID or us knowing about COVID, but it was just a few months before. And so she was supposed to be hospitalized, but there was no room at the hospital. So what they did was we had to take her to the doctor every day in the morning and check in with the doctor. And she was there all day until closing. And they were on call with the head of pediatrics at the hospital all day long, basically like giving their, the doctors give you the stats, and they're giving her treatment over the phone. Like, okay, well, here's the next step. And then we would bring her home, and my husband and I would take shifts playing nurse all night for her because we literally had to keep her alive. She was hospitalized last year for her really bad case of asthma. We never, ever were like, well, everybody needs to somehow, cater to us. Our daughter is sick. Our daughter's immune compromised. So please, everybody do X, Y, and Z to keep our daughter safe. No, we actually went into our own quarantine period because we were like, okay, we have to protect her and keep her safe. And I documented this on my social media, like on Facebook too. The memories will come up, and it's like, we're still in quarantine over here, trying to keep my daughter safe because we didn't want her to get more sick. Because of course, I am of the belief, if you're sick, stay home. If you have a sick child, your sick child needs to be taken care of. Like, keep them home, take care of them. Don't spread illness. I'm all for that. But again, I wasn't asking everyone to get whatever. Please wear a mask. Please get vaccinated. Please eat this certain diet. Please, you stay home. You do all the things so that my child can go and live her life. Like, it doesn't work that way. We as parents had to make a decision. It was like, I'm not even kidding when I tell you it was like probably 2 weeks prior to COVID coming out that we came out of our own quarantine for her. We were like, oh, we're finally out and about. And we went out to lunch and took pictures, and then it was her birthday. And we went out to celebrate her birthday. And that's when everyone started hoarding toilet paper. And we left her birthday dinner and went and tried to get toilet paper. And then the next morning they were like, and we're shut down for 2 weeks. And we were like, we had just come out of our own quarantine. she's fine. She's good. But anyway, having gone through this as a parent, I would never ask anyone else to do anything for us. That was absolutely, we had to make our decisions of what's best for our daughter. That had nothing to do with anybody outside of our home. We didn't ask anybody for anything because that was never even a thought of ours. It was never like, oh gosh, we have a sick daughter and everyone needs to cater to us. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine how society would come to a grinding halt if that's how we just normally acted, is like everybody else is responsible for the health of every single person in their world. Like, it just seems like that's almost impossible. It's impossible for all of us to like not care, but like to worry about our actions affecting those of other people. People would literally just stay home all the time. Like they wouldn't go anywhere.
Stop living. Like, I mean, I literally, we would have to stop living. We would have to stop thriving in order to do that. And it's not because we don't care, it's not because we're insensitive, but you have to go to work. You're involved in church. We're involved in church. Like, I would get frustrated when I would go to church and put my kids in Sunday school and there was other sick kids. And then, of course, like I homeschool, so it's different for me, but families do put their kids in school and then other families send their sick kids to school. But at the same time, most families these days in California are two working parents. And so they don't have the option to stay home with their kids. I get it. Like things like that happen. But if we were to cater to every single individual, we would have to stop living. We couldn't go to the grocery store and we couldn't go to work and we couldn't go to movies and we couldn't go to shows and we couldn't go do, out to eat and walks on the beach or whatever. We would always just be like, there might be someone sick. We must stay inside, spray Lysol everywhere, shut the windows. And like, that's not life. That's not thriving. That's mentally unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, we went through it here in California.
But if you're sick, stay home. 100% you're sick, stay home.
Yeah. Sick, stay home. All right, let's keep watching.
Transmission. That's why we still need to continue other mitigation measures like masks and doing testing and good ventilation. But vaccines are one of the more effective ways. So it's the cornerstone of any effort to try to prevent the spread of COVID in the school.
Real quick, I want to get right back into this. I just remember this was January of 2022 because I looked it up. I was looking up like some of the facts about around this time period. Just to give people context, this was basically 2 years after COVID started, and Dr. Richard Pan is still out there saying we still have to engage in mitigation efforts such as masking and social distancing and vaccine mandates. It's 2022, and he will not let go of COVID tyranny. So I just want to point that.
Is that when he turned out? Like,
I think, yeah, he turned out in 22 because 22 was when he introduced, as they're talking about all these bills, because it's January, he introduced this like package. They were like the vaccine mandate crew or something. There was a whole bunch of them. And this was one of the packages. And I remember we did a bunch of episodes on this back in 2022 about the requirements of what they were trying to do. They were all defeated. Thankfully, they were all defeated. They were all pulled. None of them went into effect. But just to give people,
I'm going to talk about a couple of his after the video. I'm going to talk about a couple of his bills that were not defeated. But
yeah. So let's keep watching.
Now, of course, if we could all do our part, we could also reduce the amount of virus that's in our community, and that would certainly help everyone. But certainly we want to be sure that in our schools that we don't have COVID that's spreading frequently in.
Yeah.
That slide just a second ago, they showed it a couple times. It's so funny they keep showing that because the woman's mask is below her nose. And in 2022, we all knew you weren't supposed to expose your nose. If the mask was working, it was above your nose. And I just think it's funny that they've shown that clip a few times in here. Just wanted to point that out.
School system.
Okay, so we do have some sound from a local parent who is not happy with this proposal. So let's go ahead and listen to her.
Honestly, I can't imagine what the strong push is. When you've got a product that shows no appreciable benefit for children, I don't understand why they're pushing it on our children. When you see in the state of California where we're just about to have the Super Bowl full of people and yet our children remain masked in their classrooms and 2-year-olds in daycare are masked, I don't understand it at all.
Okay, what do you say to Jennifer Kennedy there? Really, the question becomes, is there enough data to ensure that a child will not have negative long-term side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine, which is a novel vaccine?
Well, first of all, when she said there's no appreciable benefit to the vaccine, that's just wrong. There's lots of data to show there's significant benefit to getting vaccinated. In terms of the vaccine itself, given the mechanism of the vaccine, the vaccine has gone through all the clinical trials. It continues to be monitored after approval. So we're constantly monitoring any side effects resulting from the vaccine. Millions of children.
Also, remember, he is obviously a Democrat, which they were the party who were screaming in 2020 that they would never take a Trump vaccine. Remember, that was the whole talking point. Kamala Harris was like, I'm never going to take a Trump vaccine, blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden, a year and a half later, they were like pushing the vaccine as if it was the Holy Grail. So I always think that's funny that they did such a flip flop on the vaccine, because once it was pushed by Trump and then they hated it. But then when Biden was in, they were all about it.
I've already gotten the vaccine, more than millions. Billions of people have gotten the vaccine. And so we have a lot of data on the safety of this vaccine. And we are confident that the vaccine's benefits way beyond outweighs the risk.
I want to get your...
So I want to stop there because he talks about how we know all the safety and we have all this data and we know exactly what's going on. Now, there were a lot of people who were concerned about the long-term effects of this COVID vaccine because it was too soon for us to just, spike the ball and say, slam dunk, everything. I just mixed two sports metaphors there about how great this vaccine was. Vigilant Fox, I'm going to show you this. Vigilant Fox is a great follow on X, or I think they're on Instagram as well. They published this thread that a Yale study quietly confirms COVID vaccine nightmare. And he says, they told you the shot would stay in your arm. That was a lie. They told you the spike protein would degrade quickly. That was a lie. Yale researchers tracked vax-injured patients over time, and they were shocked to learn that some individuals were still producing spike protein 7 and 109 days after vaccination. That's almost 2 years. Again, this was done by Yale scientists. This wasn't some fringe group. This wasn't like some out of nowhere group that they were like, oh, we don't trust them. Goes on to say these Yale researchers believed mRNA shots would help fight COVID and even long COVID. They've since changed their stance. Why? Because the data forced them to. Goes on to say the Yale researchers found clear biological proof that in some people, mRNA spike protein production did not stop following vaccination. Instead, it persisted, triggering autoimmunity, suppressing immune function, and reactivating dormant viruses. These people just weren't feeling off. They had objectively measurable signs of illness, such as lower CD4 counts, reactivated Epstein-Barr and herpes viruses, over 100 autoimmune antibody increases, TNFA spikes, and more. I don't know what half that stuff is, but you can certainly go look it up for yourselves. For years, these individuals were dismissed and told they were anxious or imagining it. Many of them were labeled anti-vaccine despite having just taken the vaccine, but Yale's data provides otherwise. What we know for years, thanks to personal stories and anecdotal evidence, is now scientifically proven. This study validates the experience and concerns millions of people worldwide. We should be shouting this from the rooftop. Remember, these were the things that we're told. The mRNA degrades in hours. The spike protein clears quickly. The shots don't stay in your body. And we can't forget the broken record, safe and effective. So you can go look it up. It's Vigilant Fox on X for the actual study if you want to go look at it in his thread. But basically, Yale study came out just as of like this week, October 23rd, and quietly it said, yeah, the mRNA vaccine did have all these downsides that people were worried about back in 2020 through 2022. And people were being called conspiracy theorists and anti-vax and all that stuff. And Dr. Richard Pan is up there going, oh, it's safe. It's safe. Billions have taken it. Billions have taken it, and we have all the data. Well, how many years later? 3 years later since that video, We now have Yale study evidence showing that, nope, all that stuff that you said, not true. I know you have a lot of thought, and there were some bills you want to go over that Dr. Richard Pan introduced as well. So I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, well, right before you pause the video, as he was speaking, I don't know if he's just isn't a good public speaker. And so like, I know I'm not, and I tend to have a nervous giggle, and perhaps that's what's going on here. But he was talking about how, well, she's wrong, safe and effective, all that, the benefits outweigh the risks. But he was kind of condescendingly laughing while he said that. And again, perhaps that was just my perception. It could just be his little kind of nervousness of being on the news, public speaking. But it felt condescending to me, and that's always annoying. I want to, before I go into anything, I want to say, okay, so my son is less than 2 weeks away from turning 20, my oldest child. He's not really a child. I've been a parent for 20 years. I would never tell you or anybody, don't get vaccinated, don't get your child vaccinated. Vaccines are, whatever. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I don't know. Okay, there's studies, yes. But I don't know what's best for you. I don't know what's best for yours, others, children. I don't even know that I know what's best for my kids. I just know I try to do what's best. And I believe that that's what the majority of parents do. I believe the majority of parents truly are doing the best that they can, the best that they know with the information that they have. And therefore, I am 100% against vaccine mandates. That is a huge difference. And people are going to say, oh, you're just trying to say you're against vaccines, but playing it politically safe. No, I am against the mandates. I do not have a problem with anyone who chooses to get vaccinated or vaccinate their children, or delayed vaccines, which are an option. Okay? Mandates. But I'm also against mandates for many things. Government mandates just don't make sense to me. So I do not believe that a government should mandate any sort of, you need to have these vaccinations. Even when it comes to public school, which I don't do public school, and I do feel well, you're putting your child in public school, so there are rules you have to follow. But again, there are some children that do need a medical exemption. There have been vaccine injuries. There is an entire vaccine injury court system that has paid out billions for vaccine injuries that would not exist if vaccine injuries did not exist. So this is not, again, an anti-vaccine argument. This is a mandate shouldn't exist choice. Back in 2015, Senator Pan authored SB 277, which passed. I was a huge advocate against it. I was one of those people that had the forums that was out there collecting signatures and everything. And SB 277, because there's two of them that I want to talk about. So let me just make sure that I go. Okay, so 277 enacted in 2015 eliminated non-medical / personal belief and religious exemptions for school and daycare vaccination requirements. So that's, again, this was Pan authored this, and it did pass. So what it did was got rid of your personal belief exemption of saying, I don't want my child to have this vaccination for whatever reason. And you used to be able to opt out. You used to be able to say, I'm the parent, I'm not comfortable with this, therefore we're opting out. And the schools, this bill was like, nope, you want your kid in school, you no longer have that, that option. So that was, one step of chipping away at parental rights. And he's no longer running, but former California Senator Brian Dahle, who did run for governor in 2022, was very outspoken about this bill at the time as well, advocating for parental rights. And I just want to point that out because thank you, Senator Dahle, for being an advocate for parental rights. I very much appreciate that. Even, back in 2015, it wasn't really that popular of a thing yet. I mean, they were kind of slowly chipping away, but it wasn't mainstream. I think it was mostly the homeschool moms that were out there lining up at the Capitol and screaming on social media about parental rights. And but Senator Brian Dahle was advocating for us. So I just credit where credit is due because I very much appreciate that. So that passed. Then in 2019, Senator Richard Pan authored SB 276, which now established, this was established a more stringent state level review process for medical exemptions. Okay, there was a concern that doctors were giving out medical exemptions that were fraudulent because they were technically, like, people were able to go to the doctor and say, I can't get this personal/religious exemption. Can you give me a medical exemption? So this cracked down on that. So actually, there are doctors who, like a bunch of homeschool moms would flock to in Orange County. I'm sure there were other doctors throughout the state, but I'm in Orange County. Homeschool moms were my group. Like, so this is what I'm aware of. We had a doctor who I was going to because he was willing to give us the exemptions that we wanted and needed. And he moved out of state. He was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm not going to be in this where I am no longer allowed to give medical exemptions. I believe that parents should have a choice. I don't believe in these mandates. And yet the government is cracking down on this. And so him and his practice left the state. That's a real thing. I have friends that during this time left the state because they weren't even getting the necessary medical exemptions that they needed for some of their children. And they were even homeschool families. Like, they weren't even trying to get their kids into public schools. It was just that they were no longer allowed to receive these like medical exemptions. And they left the state. And Richard Pan has played a huge role in that. And I think that that's absolutely disgusting because, again, you have every right to go and get all the vaccines in the world that you want for you and your children and your spouse. That's fine. But do not tell me what my spouse and myself and my children need so that we can be a part of society. We are taxpayers. If you don't want our taxes, or if you don't want us in society, then take away, like, don't make me pay property taxes. I don't use your school systems anyway. Don't tell me what to do with me and my body. Don't tell me that my body, my choice for abortion, but not my body, my choice for vaccines. Stop taking away my parental rights. My children do not belong to the government. They do not belong to Richard Pan. I have zero respect for Richard Pan. I think that he is a disgusting man. I think that part of Proposition 50, they had people in place already in these redistricting. And I think that they probably, again, had these backdoor deals and were like, Richard, we can get you in. We can get you to run for Congress. We're going to push Kiley out. Kiley has been a huge advocate for school choice in California. He's a huge advocate for personal choice for vaccines. He's a huge advocate for personal choice and parental rights in California and has been. He's been a fighter for that. And that's a threat to government who wants to own you and own your body, even though they, are totally pro-abortion. But I do believe that Richard Pan was kind of put in place and they're like, we're going to get this proposition passed. We're going to get you in this district, or we're going to push Kiley out. We're going to get more of you in, and we're going to make sure now that we can spread this across America via Congress.
I mean, I can't summarize it any better than that. He's, I agree. He was probably waiting in the wings when Prop 50 was proposed, and they knew that they were going to redistrict District 3 to get him in there, or try to get him in there. Again, I still think it would be hilarious if Prop 50 passes and they don't flip the amount of seats that they actually think they're going to flip. That would be hilarious. It'd be a nice little, FU to Sacramento. But yeah, I mean, these guys, like Dr. Richard Pan and Scott Wiener, they just believe they know what's best for you. They believe that the state knows what's best for you and what's best for your family and stuff like that. And they just believe it's a top-down sort of philosophy of, I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what vaccine to take, and you can't say no. So with that, let's move on to our next story. This has been in the news. I don't want to show the video because the video is, we've all seen the video. It's been graphic enough. But this is regarding the immigrant truck driver, the illegal immigrant truck driver who killed 3 people in Ontario because he was driving under the influence. So let me pull up this article and we'll take a look at it. And there's a video as well I want to show. Deadly crash in California renews federal criticism of immigrant truck drivers. This is Sean Duffy. He's the Secretary of Transportation. Singh, a Yuba City, California, is from India, entered the U.S. illegally in 2022 across the southern border, Homeland Security said Thursday in a post on X. That revelation prompted Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to restate earlier concerns about who should be able to obtain commercial driver's license. Duffy and President Donald Trump have been pressing the issue and criticizing California ever since a deadly Florida crash in August was caused by an immigrant truck driver the federal government says was in the country illegally. Newsom's office responded that the federal government approved Singh's federal employment authorization multiple times, and this allowed him to obtain a commercial driver's license in accordance with federal law. And then this came out as well. Homeland Security, they lodged an arrest detainer for Singh. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced U.S. Immigration and Customs, ICE, lodged an arrest detainer for Jashampreet Singh, a criminal illegal alien from India responsible for taking the lives of 3 individuals and several more injured in a DUI accident in San Bernardino County, California. On October 22nd, ICE lodged an immigration detainer for Singh following his arrest by local authorities in San Bernardino, California, on charges of vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence. And then they give you a link to look at the dash cam, which we don't need to see because everyone's probably seen it at this point anyway. This has obviously riled up a lot of people in the trucking industry. It's obviously a question that a lot of people are looking at, and him being in California and getting his CDL from California just kind of exacerbates the immigration issue even more. It definitely puts a spotlight on the issue of illegal immigration. It probably shocks a lot of Americans to be like, how does an illegal immigrant even get a CDL? Like, how does that even happen? Probably under the lax Biden administration in California allow it to happen. And they were overpassing the requirements that you need to speak English or read English to get a CDL, which is unbelievable to think that you're driving a huge vehicle with I don't know how many tons of weight behind it, and you're not following you don't know how to read signs in English, you don't know how to read the regulations in English. There is a lot of regulations that go on with truck drivers. My wife works in the trucking industry. She's very familiar with how many regulations there are and just basically what you have to do. It is very regulated. And the idea that if you don't speak English, how are you following any of these laws that are supposed to be put into place for the safety of others while you're on the road and sharing the road with them? So it's not only that he was an illegal immigrant, got a CDL, he was under the influence, which makes it even worse. I mean, it's probably the most shocking story that really puts a spotlight on illegal immigration, that it's more than just what people think. Like that's what I think this really puts a spotlight on, especially for the Trump administration, is this puts a spotlight on the issues of illegal immigration broadly. I mean, I think people always kind of condense it into it's illegal immigration and it's always, the people who work on farms and stuff like that, and they're not hurting anybody. Well, now we have conclusive proof that two different illegal immigrants, one in Florida who killed 2 people because he made a wrong U-turn on a highway. Then you have this guy who was under the influence and killed 3 people, puts a huge spotlight on it. There is a video I want to show. Do you have any comments before we hop into that video?
Well, this is obviously very sad. 3 people were killed, but also this illegal immigrant, I think he's only 21, right? So his life is kind of, I don't know what kind of life he was seeking here in America. I have no idea if he came here seeking a better life or if he was here under the various terms. I know nothing about him. But 21, now you've killed 3 people and your life is just beginning. That's quite tragic. I don't want to say his life is ruined, but his life is probably ruined. I hope that he has remorse, but at the same time, like if he does, it's going to be guilt that's going to follow him for the rest of his life, which he has quite a life ahead of him or did. And regarding trucking, my son actually just completed trucking school because he's pursuing his CDL. So I know there's they're talking about pausing CDL licenses here. I don't know all the details on that, but I do wonder, well, how does that affect my son? But yes, there's so many to get your license. There are so many rules and regulations, and just the trucking. I mean, trucking school alone does cost money, several $1,000s and a lot of hours, a lot of time. So that's all interesting to me that he went through that whole process. I guess recently got a CDL, got drunk and drove a huge old truck. Awful for everyone involved. And anyway, let's get into your video and then we could talk more.
Well, I did want to answer your question because there was this article that I found. This was from trucknews.com. So this is an industry website. U.S. tightens CDL regulations for non-citizens. And this came out already after the issue in Florida, and that driver was licensed in California. Basically talking about how today's actions will prevent unsafe foreign drivers from renewing their license and hold states accountable to immediately invalidate improperly issued license. It potentially resulting in the removal of 194,000 drivers from the U.S. highways. The new rule only applies to the non-citizen drivers with H-2A, H-2B, or E-2 visas to receive a CDL, which is also crazy because this guy was illegal and didn't have any of this stuff. It also calls for applicants to appear in person for each renewal and mandates additional steps states must take when issuing these credentials. Trucking groups, including the American Trucking Associations and Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, expressed support for the new rule and Trump administration's efforts to assist U.S. truckers. So if your son is entering the trucking industry, now that they're getting rid of 194,000 drivers, I would say he's in a good spot right now. There's probably a huge demand for drivers. And actually, this next clip, there might be. So good for him.
I wanted to add, just because regarding this article, I did forget. I asked my son, what documents did you have to show to get into school? My license, my birth certificate. I'm pretty sure I had to take my passport, which he was probably wrong on that because I can't imagine. Not every U.S. citizen has a passport. I can't imagine that they would require that as long as he's got like a birth certificate, social security card, which of course, I mean, he's a legal citizen. He was born here. I was born here. Fifth generation Californian. So that's an inside joke here. Yeah. I am a fifth generation Californian, but it's an inside joke.
You mean you don't go all the way back to like the Spanish conquistadors or like the Spanish missionaries?
I am very white. I cannot claim any sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a European mutt. So yeah, I don't think he had to show a passport. I think he was probably incorrect on that, but he definitely had to like take his license, his social security, his birth certificate, and then like proof of residency. There was, some sort of doctors, like you had to pass like a physical test and stuff like that. So anyway, we could go on.
Oh, okay.
Last week, Vivek Sharma went to the DMV to renew his trucking license, but he was denied. The problem? New rules surrounding the process. As he explains in Hindi, only green card holders and U.S. citizens can get their commercial driver's license renewed. Sharma's been in the U.S. legally for the past 10 years, seeking political asylum. His final court case is next year. He's been driving a truck for the past 8 years, but now he can't. Ab kya karenge aap? Abhi kya kuch local job dekhenge? When asked what comes next, he says he's worried. Trucking paid well. The sudden stop in income means he won't have money to send back to his family in India. Now he will have to start over. The U.S. Department of Transportation issued emergency rules that require the DMV to stop issuing commercial driver's licenses, or CDLs, to drivers who are not U.S. citizens or permanent residents. Even those with legal work visas, like Sharma, will be denied. It says it's doing so to improve traffic safety and close loopholes in the law.
Here at the port, we have 32 languages spoken, so that gives you the diversity of people that are working the port. This is a tough business. Trucking is a tough business, and so it's we usually have minorities that come over here.
Bill Abudi runs an independent trucking company out of the Port of Oakland. He says business has slowed due to the tariffs, but even still, there's a shortage of drivers. One of his concerns is the situation could evolve into what happened during the height of the COVID pandemic.
It was a log jam of containers. We can't deliver, we can't service. I mean, the drivers fit everywhere. They deliver everything that you receive. And so when you don't have enough of them, everything just gets backed up.
The DOT is singling out California for what it calls gross negligence. It says more than 25% of CDLs given to non-citizens or non-permanent residents were improperly issued. California has until the end of the month to come into compliance or face losing millions in federal highway funding. In Oakland, Ansar Hassan, ABC 7 News.
Yeah, so I think your son might be entering at the right time. It sounds like there's going to be a demand for truck drivers in California. I mean, I hate to sound like a hard-nosed, like immigration hawk who's like, ah, they got to go back to their own. But there's so much that seems so wrong about all of this. And it just seems like, okay, first off, he entered the country illegally through the U.S. border, through the southern border. And then he was under the influence. And then with that gentleman in the video, even then I go, okay, well, you're here for political asylum. How did you end up in America for political asylum? Isn't the rule you have to go to the first safe country that's like closest to you? I imagine that's not America. And it sort of is also an issue of like how they're abusing the political asylum rule. Like that's not the purpose of political asylum, is like a backdoor immigration way. He didn't speak English. He said, I'm here to send money back to India. And it just, I don't know. It just, for all those immigration, it's just like everything that President Trump has been saying and all this stuff kind of comes to light and almost proves him right on a lot of this stuff, because you look at this and go, what are we doing here? How is this good for our economy when there's probably plenty of young men and young women who would do these jobs because they pay well and they have good benefits and they're a solid job. It's a great trade. And it's a good career, but 25% of CDLs in California go to people who are non-citizens and who are here improperly. Like, that's mind-boggling to me. Like, how does this happen? And we're just fine with this. And now it took 3 people dying and losing their lives for us to wake up and go like, wait a second, I'm sorry, what's going on? Who's getting these CDLs? It almost makes you never want to drive on the highway again and look at a truck and go, I have no idea who's driving this truck. I'm just going to take back roads from now on, because God forbid there's someone driving a truck who might cause another accident. Like, I don't know. It's just, what are your thoughts?
So the specific, I can't say that word apparently, specific to the gentleman in the video, I do feel bad for him. Like, he's like, I've had this job for 8 years. But then he talks about he's sending money back to his family in India. I don't know who his family is, but if he's seeking political asylum, why is his family not also seeking political asylum? And one of the arguments that we hear from the left is they're separating families at the border. They're separating families. Okay, well, why are we that okay with him coming and being separated from his family, even though that was his choice? Why are we supporting that? We're then sending the wages back to India, which then is for the economy in India, as opposed to America, where, again, we have our own billions of dollars in debt, just here in California alone, and our own homelessness crisis and all the other things that we have. And like we know right now, we're saying because of the government shutdown, come November 1st, there's going to be 40 million people who aren't going to have their food stamp benefits and all that. Why are we sending money to India? Which, okay, I get that he's earning that paycheck, but and I do feel bad. Like, I watch that video and I think, oh my gosh, 8 years that he's put into this and now he's lost that. And that's sad because someone else royally messed up, and this man didn't necessarily mess up. Like, this isn't his fault and he's paying the consequences of it. But again, that's what illegal immigration does. It's not because we're out here being a bunch of jerks who are saying, no, this is America and we don't want you, we're racist and we have no time, room, money, whatever for you. It's, we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our borders. We need to protect our citizens. And that is why we have a process for legal immigration. And look what this process of illegal immigration has done. And even a few months ago, there was the restaurant closure in San Diego. And it turned out that owner was violating a bunch of rules and basically abusing his employees and overworking them for very underpaid wages. But they're kind of just like, whatever, we're here in America, and so we're going to take what we can get. But that's unacceptable. We don't want people treated like that. Like that's not okay. We don't want this man who's here trying to earn an honest living and has been for 8 years, losing his job because of choices that someone else has made. But again, this is what it does. Illegal immigration has very negative effects on people who are trying to come here legally and on citizens who were already born here, who are here and trying to, make their own living here. And so this just goes back to, like, we've really got to enforce legal immigration. We've got to close the borders, and we've got to be really careful about who we're allowing in. And as far as like facing this, we have, I guess recently it came out that there's less jobs than unemployed people. Did I say that correctly? Like, we have more unemployment than there are jobs available in America right now. This sounds like it could free up a lot of jobs. I know not everybody wants to be a truck driver. And while there are hard standards and you need to go through trucking school, it's a relatively quick process. So if you are without a job and you are wondering, if you're in California, like, look into this. It's a few $1,000s. It's, I think, a couple months. And you have to study to get your permit first. It's kind of like the regular, how you get your regular license. You got to study, pass the written permit test. And then from there, you can start truck driving school, and they train you on all the things and behind the wheel, and they lend you the car that you use to pass the driver's license test. I think you have like 3 tries, and then you have to start the process over. But, it's, again, a few $1,000s, a few months of your life, and you could be well on your way to earning a good and honest living for what looks like we'll have a lot of jobs available here in California.
194,000. Well, 25% of the CDL drivers, they're probably going to revoke those. But side note, the update on that restaurant Bona Forchetta here in San Diego, news just broke a couple weeks ago that they were shut down because of a rat infestation. So, for all those,
how that affects everybody who was, involved in that restaurant.
Well, I wonder where all the protesters were who were like, we stand with Bona Forchetta and the owners of Bona Forchetta. And they had that huge press conference, and every Democrat in San Diego showed up to say, we stand with the owner of Bona Forchetta. And then it came out he was a horrible owner and he abused them. And now he's violated all these, health codes with having rat infestation. I don't hear any of those Democrats saying that they still support Bona Forchetta and the owner of Bona Forchetta. But regardless, this is a sad, eye-opening story. And the fact that it originates from here in California and Gavin Newsom is blaming the federal government. Once could be a weird coincidence. Twice is... okay, that's not a coincidence anymore when there's 2 fatal crashes involving illegal immigrants who got their license here in California. So, all right. Last story of the night, again, involving the federal government and California clashing. The DOJ is sending agents to monitor election sites here in California for the Prop 50 election. We're going to watch a quick video and then we'll discuss.
Well, are they coming to watch or intimidate? Sparks are flying between Republicans and Democrats here in California after the Department of Justice announced plans to send federal election monitors to 5 California counties for the upcoming November election. The DOJ says state Republicans requested these monitors. NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith explains why.
The U.S. Department of Justice says it will monitor polling sites in 5 California counties to ensure transparency, ballot security, and compliance with federal law. They also say it comes at the request of California's Republican Party. John Dennis is a San Franciscan who's on the board of directors for the California Republican Party.
It's important to have elections that people have confidence in. So there have been concerns in several counties. The Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division was made aware of those concerns and decided to monitor the activities in those counties.
Monitors will be sent to Kern, Riverside, Fresno, Orange, and Los Angeles County. The department also notes it regularly deploys staff to monitor compliance in elections across the country.
This move by Donald Trump has nothing to do with election integrity and everything to do with election intimidation and manipulation.
But Democrats, including State Senator Scott Wiener, are questioning the move, saying it seems to be more about politics than protecting votes.
California knows how to run elections, and we run them very, very well. And this is the Trump.
Debatable, but go off, Queen.
Administration just trying to come in to intimidate voters, to scare people so that they don't go to vote because they don't want Prop 50 to pass.
Early voting is already underway. The key issue, Prop 50. That's the proposal that would allow the governor to redraw California's congressional districts to boost Democrats' chances of picking up seats in the midterm elections. Governor Newsom's office also reacted to the federal monitors today, posting on social media in part, the U.S. Department of Justice has no basis or business to interfere in this election, adding this is solely about whether California amends our state constitution.
I actually have the video. Let's switch over to that one because nothing, you just got to admire the guy's hand wringing and hand movements.
So today, the Trump administration announced they're sending election monitors to 5 specific counties here in the state of California. They have no business doing that. They have no basis to do that. In fact, we have a statewide election for a statewide constitution. This is about voter intimidation. This is about voter suppression, period, full stop. And it's a pattern, isn't it? It's consistent with what they've done with the federalization of the National Guard and the intimidation and the chill that that's created. They'll do that right around Election Day as well. Same thing with ICE and Border Patrol, masked men. Watch that space, showing up in and around polling booths and voting places. But this is a bridge too far. And I hope people understand it's a bridge that they're trying to build, the scaffolding for all across this country in next November's election. They do not believe in fair and free elections. Our republic, our democracy is on the line. We all need to wake up.
Our democracy and republic, 2 different things, but okay. First off, again, why are we concerned about ICE intimidating people at voting locations? I mean, seems like an odd thing to be worried about. I mean, everyone who's voting is a citizen, correct? So, and I assume they have identification. So what could be happening at voting locations that I'm not usually the conspiracy theorist, but why is he so worried about ICE being at voting locations? But real quick, I did need to fact check old noodles here. They actually do have basis. They do have basis and grounds to do this. In fact, it's actually regularly practiced by several administrations. They have the right to do this through the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It allows federal oversight. Under Section 3A, federal courts can order observers in specific areas based on evidence of voting discrimination. More broadly, the DOJ can deploy its own attorneys and staff to observe polling places and ballot counting sites for compliance with the Voting Rights Act's prohibitions on discriminatory practices. So already there's a law. Meyer also enforces the National Voter Registration Act, Help America Vote Act, uniformed and oversees Citizens Absentee Voting Act, and provisions of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And the DOJ's role aligns with the Congress's authority under the 14th, 15th, and 24th Amendments to safeguard equal protection, voting rights, and against poll tax. So constitutionally, there is an act. This has been practiced by numerous administrations. In fact, it goes back to, this is just in the past couple of years, Barack Obama in 2012 sent monitors to 57 jurisdictions across 25 states, focusing on areas with histories of voting rights issues under the Help America Vote Act. This included swing states like Florida and Ohio. Interesting. They only seem to send them to places that are in hot contention. Barack Obama, once again in 2016, deployed monitors to 67 jurisdictions in 28 states, the broadest scope up to that point, targeting potential voter intimidation and access barriers in states like North Carolina and Texas. Donald Trump did it in 2018 during the midterms, enforcing federal laws and concerns over voter suppression. Joe Biden did it in 2022, sent monitors to 64 jurisdictions in 24 states for the general election, including Maricopa County, which has been a hotly contested county in America for the past couple elections. So it seems like these presidents seem to send people out to these jurisdictions or counties that seem to be elections that they're interested in, or making sure that they have an idea what's going on out there. Joe Biden, once again, 2024, he expanded to 86 jurisdictions across multiple states, covering all major swing states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, to monitor ballot handling and voter access amid heightened post-2020 tensions. So again, I ask you, Gavin Newsom, when Joe Biden and Barack Obama did it, is it election intimidation? Is there no basis for this? What's your rationale for this is my question. So yes, you can do this. There's a legal basis for this. It's part of the federal government, and based on the Equal Protection Clause and all those amendments in the Constitution, the federal government can absolutely do this. So your fear mongering and your hand wringing or your hand waving and hand gesturing and all that stuff is just theatrics, because at the end of the day, they can do this. You're just worried that it may tip the scale a little bit in the direction you don't want it to go. So, fact check, false. Gavin Newsom, there's absolutely basis for Donald Trump to do this. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, in the last couple days, okay, so that was just my version of a politician's hand motions. It was the hand jive, or my version of the hand jive. Anyway, in the past few days, either Gavin Newsom's press X account or his own account tweeted out that this is not a federal election and therefore there shouldn't be any federal interference, which, yes, correct, this is not a federal election. This is a California statewide election. However, it only affects federal office. This is for Congress, which is that, it's federal. Congress is federal, not state. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. I wanted to point that out. But then Karen Bass also recently tweeted out, and I'm sorry, there's a fly. This is not my political movements now. I'm just
Gavin Newsom doing his finger hands.
Okay. Yeah. So Karen Bass actually tweeted out her own kind of intimidation tactic of saying, vote by mail is perfectly safe. You don't need to go and vote in person. And that's paraphrasing. I probably should have pulled up the tweet or X or whatever. But she basically kind of alluded to, like, hey, you don't need to go vote in person. And isn't that kind of a voter intimidation? It's very shady. And it's just, it is funny how these politicians should really start fact checking before they put out these posts, because their same parties have been doing these same things for years. It's just that when it's used on them, or they think being used on them, the opposite party is doing so, they immediately, this is unconstitutional, this isn't right, this is voter intimidation. And I wish that they would kind of check, like, hey, did someone else do this before we say anything? I mean, I think I see that game on both sides. Certainly everyone is, politicians play these games. Politicians is about to stop playing games. We are not a game. You're elected for serious purposes. As much as we get to come on here and make fun of what they say and talk about what they say, we kind of wish we didn't have to. We wish we didn't need to. We wish that it all was, puppies and rainbows and ice cream, and that everyone could handle their ice cream because they weren't lactose intolerant and we wouldn't have anything to talk about. But that's not the case.
I wish that government was so inconsequential that there wasn't really anything to talk about on podcasts. Right. It would be down to, that street light that we want fixed. It got fixed in a week. Does that seem too long? As opposed to 500 days, which is what happens here in San Diego. I think the hand wringing is I can never remember. It's always often misquoted. Is like the lady doth protest too much. And it's always like, well, why are you so upset about this? If you're running fair elections, then what's the big deal? Like, you have nothing to be worried about. And it just kind of raises that suspicion and that eyebrow of, you're very concerned about federal DOJ agents just making sure that there's no voter discrimination under the Voting Rights Act. I don't know. I thought you believed in free and fair elections and everything was done, like Scott Wiener said, we do things immaculately here in California, which is definitely debatable. But if you're doing everything fine, wouldn't you just be like, sure, come on in, we do everything great, everything's fine, like, you can check whatever you want, you're not going to find anything. But they have to fearmonger and say it's all about election intimidation and people are not going to show up because there's DOJ agents. I mean, that's not going to intimidate me. I don't know if anyone listening or watching right now, if it intimidates them to think that there's a DOJ agent or somebody else of the federal government close to the voting sites just observing. And if there's nothing. It's one of those things. You shouldn't be worried about it. If there's nothing to worry about, or nothing to hide, there's nothing to worry about. So it's interesting that Trump is sending these DOJ. It's perfectly normal. Administrations have done it in the past. And you're right. I don't know why they don't just take literally 2 seconds. They have huge staffs that are all mostly overpaid. No one can take 2 seconds to pull up a phone and Google or AI or search or something like that and be like, hey, have people done this before I look like a complete jackass and get on like TV or record a TikTok video or something like that? Oh, yeah. Oh, Joe Biden did this and Barack Obama did this. Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's not that big of a deal. I should probably think about this before I get fact checked by a whole bunch of people. It's kind of like the ballroom issue is like Newsom tried to dunk on the Trump administration for the whole ballroom thing. And then people were like, whoa, wait a second. Aren't you spending like over $1 billion on your Capitol Annex and we still don't know how much the final number is? And he was like, oop, we didn't think like 2 seconds ahead of time before we did that and got dunked on. But yeah, with that said, it is a week until Election Day for Prop 50 as of tonight. So make sure if you're going to go vote in person, make sure you find where you need to go vote. You can go check it at your local county registrar. Make sure you check your county registrar. Every county registrar is different, so make sure you go check that. If you're going to drop off your ballots, make sure you look for official ballot drop-off boxes, or better yet, you can just go to the polling site and drop off your ballots there. A little PSA for everybody out there. Any other thoughts before we end the night?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
I would think the Democrats would be happy with this move by the DOJ because, it was 2020 that we were all, well, not all of us, but as a whole, it was the right that was, screaming fraudulent election, Trump won, all that. Like, with these watchers, how can we possibly cry, oh, this was a stolen election when we, not to be pessimistic, but, tea leaves, we're likely going to lose. Prop 50 will probably pass. And so when it does pass, with all these like poll observers making sure that everything is up to par, it's going to be hard for us who, are our king, Trump, Kevin, he sent in his people to come observe. How could we possibly then scream this was stolen from us? This was a fraudulent election. Nope, we had Trump's people watching. And for anyone who does feel like they're intimidated, as you just pointed out, you can mail in your ballot still. There's still time. There's plenty of ballot drop boxes. You can take it directly to your county registrar office. And that's not register, that's registrar, RAR. It's a weird word to say. So yeah, there's that. You can take it to an actual polling site and hand it in your envelope. Drop it in the ballot box, mail it in, register office, or vote in person. There's no excuses to not vote. It's so easy. You don't even have to get out of your car. And I'm not making a joke about that. You literally can drive up to the drop box and open it up, and they're very secure. And that's how I vote. My vote has been counted. That's how I've been voting past several elections. I went on a rainy day once and didn't get out of my car. My hand got a little wet. No big deal. So please, no excuses. If you are afraid of being, interrogated by ICE, you don't have to go in person. If you don't trust the mail-in process, you can go in person. All kinds of options. 1 week left. Let's do this.
Excellent way to summarize and end on a positive, upbeat note about get out there and vote. One thing on the ballot. That's it. It's literally one thing. Yes or no. It's not a big confusing ballot. With that, we're going to end for tonight. Make sure you keep up notifications, check our posts and all that stuff when we announce when the members Telegram is going to go live. It's going to be going live very soon. The point of it will be to create a community where we're going to share more stories so people can comment, so that throughout the week we can keep you updated on California politics. We're going to continue to do this podcast as well as news hits and shorts and stuff like that. Also check out our Substack, which if you are someone who likes to read a lot more than maybe watch a video, you're just like a reader, that's fine. People still read the news. You can read our blogs and stuff that we're reporting on. Sometimes we go a little bit more in depth on different topics. And with that, the best way to support the show that is 100% free is to share it with someone who you think will get a kick out of it or get a lot of information out of it. That is 100% free way to support the show. Oh, and make sure you subscribe, like, comment, hit the notification bell. All that stuff helps with the algorithm. And we will see you on the next one. Later.